Good evening, YouTube. How are you? This is not relaxing music. What is it? Let's see. Let's try this one. I hope I can be heard a little bit better because recently the volume on, not the volume, but like, well, I guess the volume on my videos has been poor. And washing machine is going in the back. So that's like noise, and the video sounds like one of those like 1940s, like with like where you can hear like the movie reels rolling. Oh, I have this one up loud as well. So yeah, it sounds like one of these like old. What is with the music lately? Hold on, I gotta get some like water running videos. Look at my hair on line. Um, okay, this is relaxing. Let's see if I can get the lighting a little bit better. No, this is good. Okay, so today I want to talk about growth. That is the message of the day. Growth. I actually listen to this message over and over, and I hear this one line all the time. And when I opened my Bible today, it didn't come up. And then when I looked it up, it came up, and I'm like, oh, I know this. I know this verse. So let me read this chapter. So this is James chapter 1, the great epistle of James, chapter 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into divers temptations, knowing this, that the trying of our faith worketh patience. My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into divers temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. So I want to say James 2 to 4 might be the most significant verses in this chapter. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. He that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Let the brother of low degree rejoice in that he is exalted, but the rich in that he is made low, because as the flower of the grass he shall pass away. For the sun is no sooner risen with a burning heat, but it withereth the grass, and the flower thereof falleth, and the grace of the fashion of it perisheth. So also shall the rich man fade away in his ways. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to him that love him. So that's verse 12. And I'll repeat it. It says, blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. For every man is tempted when he is drawn away with his own lust and enticed. Then, when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Of his own will begat he us with the word of truth, that he should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. I have to admit, some of these verses I would have to read in a different version for me to completely decipher. Of his own will begat he us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. Wherefore lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. For if any be a hearer of the word, and not a doer, he is like a man beholding his natural face in a glass. For he beholdeth himself, and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was. For if any be a hearer of the word, and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass. For he beholdeth himself, and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth that manner of man he was. But whoso looketh into the perfect law of liberty, and continueth therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. If any among you seem to be religious, and bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is vain. Pure religion and undefiled before God, the Father, is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. I'm not gonna lie, I don't understand 80% of what I just read. I literally just read it. But the parts, I'm going to read the 1, 2, 3 verses that are significant to what I want to talk about. So that is James chapter 1, verses 2 to 4, and then verse 12. So 2 to 4 says, my brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of our faith worketh patience. And let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. So, starting with verse 12, I want to kind of clarify that a little bit, or at least just add some context to it. When I was younger and I would hear about somebody receiving life, blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for he shall receive the crown of life. And you're thinking he's already alive. So what they're talking about is kind of what we refer to as a destiny, if you will, the crown of life. So it's not necessarily what I have learned on my journey. It's not necessarily that you have to die to get new life, like physically, like your body physically passing. I've learned a new meaning to death, and I think people who are spiritual, whether in the light or the dark, so whether they work witchcraft or whether they are just like, you know, high vibing religious spiritual people understand things like roads being blocked. They understand things like your path in life being blocked. They understand things like maybe they may not use the word karma, but essentially when your luck has ran out, like how we say that your luck has ran out, when your karma is done, when you have no more good energy, when you cannot create on your own. Believe it or not, there is a point where you've done so much horrible things that you cannot produce anything anymore, and you start to know that. And you know it so much that you are not just convinced of it, you prove it. Nothing can work for you, and then you have to resort to things like, you know, stealing other people's energy in order to produce. And what this passage is basically saying is when you're going through your trials, things that are going to test you to sin, things that are going to test you to turn away from God. And I want to make a distinction between making mistakes, a distinction between falling into temptation, because we all do, no matter who we are, we all do things that are not pleasing to God, versus sitting and making a conscious decision and saying, I know this is wrong. I know God doesn't like this. I don't care about God. I'm going to do whatever I want to do anyway. I'm going to do whatever I want to do anyway. And I don't care about the consequences. That's different. Now, even when you do that, God is going to continually come back and say, like, this is the wrong way. God is going to continue to say that. As a matter of fact, I'm of the opinion that they say it far too much, because there comes a point where it's just like, listen, it's quite obvious, like, you know, such and such doesn't care. But what God is basically saying is, for those of us who respect God, we are going to get to the point where we're like, okay, you know what, I shouldn't do that. We're going to repent, we're going to ask for forgiveness, we're going to feel bad. That's where your conscience kicks in. And God is basically saying, for being in a trying situation, a situation where it is illogical to fall into that kind of temptation and making a conscious decision not to, this is how your road opens up. This is how you get new life, the crown of life. To me, that is how I interpret it, because we come to trials in life that are unavoidable no matter what you want to do. It is unavoidable. Give me a second here. We're going to come to the point, all of us, no matter what your life looks like, no matter what your life mission is, everybody gets to the point where there are things that they will push you. And you kind of have to think of it like this, like, God is going to bless my patience. God is going to bless the fact that I could have taken it just as low as other people, and I didn't. Verses 2 to 4 says, or 3 to 4 more significantly, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh your patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. To me, I take it as just let everything be done. Like, the kind of thing this is, it's like you have to, it's, to me, it's better for it to take the time that it takes and let it all be done rather than give me half now, half in 2 more years, a little bit at the end. Like, no, this is one of those experiences you want to get it over with. It's kind of, it's like a ripping off a band-aid. So this is what I want to talk about tonight. Is yesterday I talked about perseverance, and today I want to talk about growing pains. So literally, to find that verse, I googled growth. I'll actually say what I googled verbatim. Bible passages about growth through trials. So I'm gonna start reading what I have here. We are being allowed to experience new experiences that are stretching us, from self-control in extreme conditions, learning to respond in new ways, acknowledging new truths, new responsibilities placed on our backs, situations of almost extreme discipline, uncertainty, trusting in unseen forces, developing relationships with ghosts and gods that don't speak and are invisible, and then being brave enough to talk about it. Our humanity, patience, and perseverance are being tested, and we are still being asked to be selfless and take care of others the way God takes care of us. And just to put a pin in that, I think about, so often I think about like what God has to endure. Like, so many times I just think to myself, like, God is dealing with a little bit too much. Like, I think this is a lot. So think about how many times God comes through and rescues people who don't believe in God at all, are non-believers, and God takes them out of horrible situations and never gets a thanks, never gets a mention, none of the above. Tonight, earlier, I was talking about Cassie and 10 years. She put up with 10 years of abuse. And I see Diddy as a chief gang stalker. I do not see Diddy as just an abusive boyfriend. Diddy has gang stalking behaviors. First of all, Diddy's an occultist, for sure. He has all the markings. Diddy is an occultist. Diddy does witchcraft. Diddy sacrifices people. You can't convince me. This is my opinion. You can't convince me otherwise. Diddy sacrificed a number of people. Diddy has definitely harvested people's destiny and their energy. For sure, for a fact. The way things are going for him now is evidence that he did that to other people. Whether you want to say Tupac, Tupac, Biggie, whoever else, he has definitely harvested people's destinies. He definitely is a spiritualist. He's a chief gang stalker. He's a narcissist. He's a lot of things. Like, he just has it. He just has like the stamp. So dealing with that for 6 months would probably drive a normal person to suicide. Like, it's not easy to be around people like that. You gotta be like a special person. People like that are not worth money. That's why people leave people like that, and they'll be happily married to someone with nothing. That's why she left him and was with a personal trainer. No. Like, people like that, like, there's nothing. I'm telling you. Because some of the stories were like, he would have her followed. They would like break into her apartment, bomb her, like just the kind of stuff that they did is just so crazy. That kind of craziness, just knowing, being in a situation like that, it's like you're enslaved. You're a slave. You are trapped in a situation like that. That reminds me of when I was reading the passage about I forget the name of it now. Oh my god, I could see it in my mind's eye. Anyway, the Egyptian god, the the homosexual one. And when I was reading, because I was listening to more videos about like um, his wife, they always have a wife, and she had to escape. They said that she escaped, and they said that when she escaped, she helped the other one that he was obsessed with and was abusing. And essentially, I first of all, it says a lot when a wife tries to escape or has to be described as escaping someone. Some people are literally like in bondage in situations. So for me, I look at a situation like that after 10 years. First of all, God held her hand during those 10 years. God, you don't get through situations like that without God, because even though you may not know God, even though you don't know how God is helping, it's God that's with you in that time. When you are aware of God, when you are aware of, like, you have an active relationship with God, you can credit God properly. But like, if you are not aware of God, maybe in her heart she was praying, I don't know, but like after a situation like that, her coming out and then her getting her opportunity to have full justice, so not just compensated for that horrible situation of enduring abuse, but through Cassie, God started the work of taking this man down. It was through her. And God came back and compensated her for that. And not just compensated her, but had her story told and then leaked the video, like the evidence, like even though it was a part of the settlement to kind of make it go away, she got the money and they still leaked it anyway. That's God. And a situation like that, I'm just saying it would be nice if we know God. And I'm not down crying her at all, because she's been through her own set of circumstances. But so many things happen and so many things we endure. And I always use myself as an example. When I was younger and I didn't have a tight-knit relationship with God yet, but God was still there for me. God got me through, and it was only after that I started going back through one at a time all the events that happened and realizing it was God with me there the entire time. We are completely undeserving, like even in the best of to the best of our ability, even to those of us who are trying our best. If God had to wait on us to actually deserve this kind of goodness, I don't think a lot of us would make it. It's very tough to be to walk in God's image, because God is perfect. To be honest with you, God is very perfect. So the way God takes care of us is in a very selfless way. God is not waiting for people to, if God had to wait for everybody to give credit, if God had to wait for everybody to give kindness, or appreciation, not kindness, if God had to wait for everybody to give credit and appreciation, we wouldn't be helped. Because sometimes we simply don't know. So in this situation, I see it more than ever where it's actually conscious. It's a conscious thing where it's like, even with all the challenges that you're going through and everything that you have to do, and not just like myself, but all of us that are fighting this thing here collectively as a collective, people still have to, throughout all of their own personal dramas, and these are not easy dramas either. And sometimes you can see it, you can read it in their energy, you can feel it in their aura, that they're dealing with their own thing. And then for myself personally, after everything that I've been through, I can see it on other people, the drama that they've been through. And I can see it actively happening, that people are siphoning off their gifts. People are destiny swapping them. People have binded them. People have done the most. I can see it because I've been there, done that. And still, we have to still be diligent and come and do this part of our job. The jobs that we do, I feel like it's like a 3, 4, 5 man job at a time. It's like we're doing the work of an entire team on our own. We're fielding attacks as a team. We are, as a one-man team, I should say, like a one-person situation. We're fielding attacks. We are working on personal projects that God needs as well. We're taking care of families. We're taking care of ourselves. We're being gang stalked, some of us, followed everywhere, like beaten down upon. We're going through the spell work. We have constant spiritual attacks around the clock, all kinds of nonsense. It's like it's not an easy road at all. So, but in all of it, you realize that you grow. And though sometimes I feel like the attacks change, sometimes it increases in intensity, sometimes it just changes. We're in periods, a lot of us, of isolation. It's a forced isolation because you're either going to isolate yourself or you're going to constantly go through abusive behavior or you're going to constantly fall into some type of trap. Trusting in the promise of an invisible, silent force, often frustrated but growing past old reactions, old ways of thinking, old ways of operating, installing new programming and downloading unexplained information, discovering the power of our minds, that things we used to laugh at are actually true, that God is real, that God is real. That has to be still the most fascinating part of the journey. Like, you're like, yeah, spell work is real, that's crazy. You know, all the things that people talk about, like, they could be true, that's crazy. But then the part about God being real, it's like, that is, well, I speak for myself, that is the best part of this, that God is real. That spirits are like us, they have feelings, that people are really evil, and some have no feelings. And the normal world around you can quickly turn into a nightmare and have an underbelly of illusions, game playing, and essentially baneful magic. Like, you're waking up, learning that you are magic and that you might not know much about magic, but you yourself are a magical person. And that alone can be a lot to digest. Learning to trust yourself, to love yourself, that's a big one. Learning to love yourself. Not everybody loves themselves. There are people who are arrogant, like they have, how do I put it? They have a sense of feeling that they're better than other people, but that's not what loving yourself looks like. You learn how to love yourself in this journey. You learn how to treat yourself, to stand firm in your confidence about yourself, demanding how you will be treated and who you allow to bombard your space. Becoming aware of hidden forces, energies, and manipulations in your aura, rapidly growing spiritually, and dealing with a level of obsession and hyperfixation that probably disgusts you and repels you. That's what it makes me feel like. Because, you know, the more something chases, the less its value. It's like being in a relationship or starting a relationship and then the person gets obsessed really early and then just being like, yeah, this is not gonna work. The more someone chases the less their value continues to diminish in your eyes. Things of value do not, trust me, the bank does not chase you to give you money. You gotta come in, apply, you gotta qualify for that. And to be honest, we are managing it tremendously well. I am gonna say, but I know Spirit says and Spirit feels that we are doing, no matter how many times you failed or you thought you failed, no matter how many times you failed or you thought you failed, no matter how many times you fell down, Spirit already knows that it's going to take, let's say, 6 months to learn a lesson. They already know that. Because this is not an easy lesson to learn. We are not in a beginner course. This is not a beginner course. This is not like regular people out there are not going through this kind of thing. This is not just a regular situation. This is a heightened human experience. This is something that you have to be built to endure. So if you thought you failed at something, you're simply learning and you're just on, it's an incremental thing. You're on an incremental journey. You're doing an amazing job. It doesn't matter what you think. You are doing an amazing job. You're managing a lot amazingly. It literally doesn't matter. It is human to snap under this kind of pressure. It's human to lose your mind under this kind of persecution and spell work and abuse. It is human. So you are having a non-human response to something that should have already broken you down. Other people cannot endure this. If they could, God could have been able to do the work through them or through just about anyone. So what you are going through is a super human experience, and you are, first of all, realizing yourself. You're hatching. You're growing into yourself. You have a lot of room to grow into, and that is why this feels like that. Every day you persist, every day you keep moving, you keep advancing and growing, is a day that will pay unseen dividends. It's like being an athlete when you're young. That muscle memory never goes away for the rest of your life. Like the earlier you start working out, the more beneficial. So even if you were to gain weight at some point, as soon as you start working out again, your muscles remember. And so it's easier for you to get in shape than other people. So it's kind of like that. You build muscle memory. So everything you do moving forward, I always talk about like the integration of lessons, because you could learn a lesson like in a sense where like you can know, having burned your hand on a stove, let's say, you can know that if I touch the stove while it's hot, my hand will burn. The lesson integrates when you no longer touch the stove. So you could learn a lesson without integrating the lesson into like your day-to-day life. In school, they call it application. You learn the lesson, now let's apply it so that it becomes a natural part of you. We've learned lessons here. We have to sit through integration of the lesson, meaning that it becomes second nature to you to do these kinds of things, because surviving this takes this kind of mindset. So it is a total revamping of who you are. You are literally breaking out of your, when they say the old self is dead, no part of your old self will be left. Completely different human being. It might be the same vessel, unrecognizable even to yourself. Let's give you one example. So today I realized something. So today I'm working and they start draining my energy. It becomes hard to focus. My energy becomes low. I'm working a little bit slower and all that stuff. Now, usually, or my old response would be to kind of like push through. Now, I did do a bit of that. Like, I gotta finish because to me, I have something, I want to accomplish. And then I started taking it a little bit slow and just taking my time. And what that allows you to do when you start taking your time when you're facing a challenging time is that you take it slower and then you start realizing what's happening. So for me, I realized they've been projecting anger to me and it hasn't been working because I've healed those hooks. I've realized that there were hooks there. Let me take it back. God realized that I was having issues healing the hooks. And the reason I was having issues healing the hooks is because the problem's not done. It's very hard to release anger and hatred. Because to be honest, yeah, I hated that man for sure. I tried not to. It's impossible. That man hates himself. How can you not hate someone who hates themselves and acts like that? That person hates themselves. Those people hate themselves. It's not that they don't like themselves. It's easy to think that you love yourself because you're arrogant, because it's easy to think. But let me tell you how self-esteem works. Self-esteem works when you know you're not a good person. You don't respect yourself. But because you live in a state of not respecting yourself, it's not like in your face, it's not strong. If I live in like warm water, I don't know that the water's warm. What do I compare it to? It's warm water. It's my environment. It just is what it is. I only know I'm in warm water when I jump in cold water and I'm like, whoa, and I have a moment of enlightenment. New pathways are formed in your brain because now you get to compare something. So now you have a contrasting experience. People recognize that they're not good people when they see good people. They're like, oh my God, people are actually like this. The first thing their brain wants to do is to say this is not real, so they want to test it with abuse. They want to bring you to where they're at so they could feel better about themselves. Like, see, I knew nobody was really like that. And when they start realizing, like, holy crap, somebody's really like that. Like, people are really like that. They start looking at themselves like, am I a bad person? Because they have nothing to compare to, really, because not only are they like that, but everybody around them is like that, and they turn other people who come around them like that as well, so that they can feel comfortable sitting in the place that they are. And then one day, when people have to realize, like, I'm really a POS for real, like they may have known that logically, but when you get to experience the contrast, you have no choice but to look at yourself like, oh my God. Like every once in a while it hits you like, oh my God. I know it does because I saw I know the first time that he questioned it. I was there. I was in his energy the first time he questioned it. He actually asked himself, like, wait, am I not a good person? And I was like, in my head, I was like, I'm not even taking this seriously right now. But it's true. That's how it works when you don't feel good about yourself. Not feeling good about yourself is something that whether you admit it or not, it still exists there. It's still there. You don't feel good about yourself. You want to feel good about yourself. You want to feel like, I'm like this person. I am deserving of love. I am deserving of this. Because it's all subconscious. Subconsciously, you're saying, I don't deserve love. I don't deserve these things. I don't deserve. It's not necessarily physical, tangible things, but it's like you don't feel good. You don't feel good. It's kind of like I experienced that first when I was younger, where I remember for some reason I always end up with promiscuous like girlfriends, like very promiscuous, but like not even where it's like it's just something in them. Maybe it's a lust demon from what I know now. Maybe that's what it is. But it's like there's always promiscuous people, and when they come around you and you're like celibate or you're just not that kind of person, they want to bring you into that world. They want you to be like that. But the primary reason is so that they can feel better about themselves, because it bothers them every time they see your self-control and your discipline. And trying to get that level of discipline is so difficult that it's easier just to try to bring you to where they are. So this is how it works. And that's the first time I realized to myself, where I've said so many times, it's like I remember being younger and saying, listen, I'm your friend, I don't judge what you're doing, but it's not for me. And that still wasn't good enough. And I remember one time I had a friend that got drunk, and she just, it all came out, and she was like, I'm jealous of you, and you're not like this, and you're not like that. And I remember there was one time I lied about something to make her feel better, and she asked me, she's like, did that really happen? And I was shocked. I'm not a good liar sometimes. I was shocked. I didn't know what to say, and she's like, I knew you lied about it. I knew you lied just to me. And she was like, but it was like, I'm not even really like that, because I'm just like that. This is just how I am. But I realized that people just want to, even if you don't judge them, even if you accept them as they are, it doesn't feel good to be the one that feels like you're feeling down about yourself because people are looking at you like, you're the one who is just not a nice person. It's just not a good person. Like, you have secrets, you have things that you don't like. It's not a good feeling. And I realized that half the time, that's why I've always known that. I heard it the other day too, an explanation of this as well in a video, but it's like I've always known that's how people have felt towards me. And there have been so many times I've tried to be like, I've tried to like pretend like, oh yeah, I'm okay with that. Oh yeah, that's totally normal, that's fine. But for me, it's not, and people know that. People sense that. Like, the point I'm trying to make is that is part of why people are beating down on you, is because people are comparing themselves to you. It's not just me. There's other people that I see, and I'm just like, this is such a beautiful human being. And even myself, who I deem myself a good person, I'm even thinking to myself like, oh my God, this person's way better than me. This person's way nicer than me. This person's so sweet. This person's such an angel. It's only natural to compare yourself. And it's only natural to feel that way. People are beating down on you and are being that way because it's like, as they're beating down on you, you're not reacting in the way that they would have reacted. You're not fighting back. You're not doing all of that. So God had to bring me to a point where I had to have an experience that would make me not be hateful. And as I healed that hook, and that's what we have to do here, you have to heal the things inside of you. You're never done healing. I've come to terms with it. No matter how many things I've healed, there's still going to be more things to heal. It's like new things to heal keep coming up, or maybe old things that I'm just realizing. But as I heal that hook, the anger doesn't work. And so as they try to bring more things that should anger me and should get a reaction, the reaction is not there. I just cannot meet those problems in the same way that I did before. That is where I see the growth. So you start seeing growth in yourself, that even though you didn't intentionally work for it, it's happening by itself, by virtue of you being kept in this situation longer than you would have wanted to be kept. So today I take things a little bit slower. I allow myself to. My body's feeling it, and I'm just allowing it. And now I start realizing what happens. So I'm like, oh, this is how they do it. So they drain your energy, they get you tired, and then they project this anger and this irritation feeling onto you. And if you can take things a little bit slower and you can recognize it, you can rise above it, and you don't have to be involved. Now, because they send you the feelings of the anger and they know you're telepathic, then they say things to you and they try to like irritate you and provoke you and get a reaction out of you. But it's in the healing, it's in the integration of the lesson, it's in responding differently than you used to before that it no longer works. We are here for the growth. It is painful. It is painful. It will try your patience first. So one of the things I've spent a lot of time doing is beating myself up for every day that I fail at not being able to meet that challenge, not being able to overcome certain hurdles. One of the hurdles that I had a super hard time with was that one. That was literally born out of just hating this individual. And even at moments, every time, and it wasn't an act of hate, it was just hating being in that situation. And even at times where if it stopped for a bit, then I would start my healing and I would just kind of let it go and just not think of that. Then it would start again. And then when it starts again, then I get into that irritation because it's kind of like a muscle. It's like this has been a habit that has been formed. It's been a cycle. It's been a cycle. So in going through this, I hate to admit it because that 2 weeks, and thank God it was only 2 weeks, but that 2 weeks was instrumental in a way, even though it was just all kinds of things. Listen, I could write a book about that. That 2 weeks alone, boy, I could write a book about it. The 2 weeks, the kind of stuff that happened, it was so ridiculous. So ridiculous. So crazy. I kid you not, it was nuts. I cannot even believe that I had that experience, but in having that experience and just, it's almost like, it's like having a close encounter with a demon. I'm not saying that to be disrespectful, but if you look at somebody in that light and then you have a closer encounter, it's almost like, it's like how God says that, through understanding. What is the quote? There's a quote that says, forgiveness takes understanding or something like that. And I've always talked about how easy it is to heal when you understand. I have not understood for the longest time. I'm like, this is not like real. This is not normal. I don't know what this is. But through understanding, it has been a lot easier to, and it's not even because of, oh, somebody had trauma or anything. It's not even just because of that. But if God had come to me like direct verbatim and been like, this is also part of your journey, I'd be like, well, I'm gonna skip that chapter. But the point is that everything that you go through literally has a purpose. Everything that you go through literally there's a reason why you're experiencing it, even though it's hard to justify it that way in the moment. Because this is trying patience. And like I always say, anything that tries your patience, anything that forces you to personally grow, forces you to push back against yourself, which is a lot harder. Quite frankly, it's the most hard thing that you can do, is having to push back against yourself. We all are facing ourselves in this situation, good or bad. Everybody here is learning. Everybody here is going through something. This is like a class where no matter on what side you're sitting on, we are all learning. We are all in service. Those contracts that were stolen, those are service contracts. People are in service. And one thing you start learning about service is you cannot get out of service. You have to endure service. It means you are not going to commit suicide out of your service. You're not going to be killed out of your service. You're not going to just lay back and just get tired and not do your job. You're going to do your job. Like, this contract demands that you do your job. So we are all here, and I don't want to say like we're stuck here, but it feels like that. We're stuck here. We are here, all of us taking this together. It's not like there's one party that's like having a good time and the other one is just like, all of us here are learning and all of us here are enduring. So the growth and the lessons, I can speak for people on our side because I don't know if this is just lessons for people on the other side. But it's like, I guess, yeah, it is a lesson. It's like you stole all these contracts and now you steal this one contract, and it's like a punishment, and you're suffering in this contract because this is a contract of suffering. And you'd ask yourself, why on earth would I bind myself to this? Why would I cloak in this energy? Why would I do this? Because this doesn't feel good. I'm suffering in this service contract. Like, they're holding me to this. I'm sure people want to get out of these cloaks and just try to go back to their normal lives because this is not worth it. So, these situations here, everybody is learning something. But I think for us, this is going to pay, I know this is going to pay off in spades, where, you know, you are almost going to be impenetrable to things that used to easily bother you. You're going to get to a point where, and it's happening slowly but surely, where things that used to trigger you, things that used to make you panic, things that used to, old ways that you used to respond, you're finding yourself just responding differently, reacting differently, even approaching problems differently, even trying to get things done in a different way. Taking your time, relaxing, trusting the process more, trusting God more. That is really what we're here doing, is literally we are being tried. We are being tried. I call it being baptized in fire, because that is what it is. It is a fire baptism. Like, literally. Like you're swimming in a volcano trying to get out. There will be days people will look at you like you're not even human because of how you will be able to respond. And not only says that, what you're being prepared for is to respond in a way that shouldn't be human. You're going to be responsible for not responding in human ways. Means you're going to face a lot of pressure, or you're going to have a lot of responsibility, or you're if you don't learn these lessons, then the things that are coming are going to make you crack. You're going to crack when you see certain things happening, or the possibility of certain things happening. Secretly, people already look up to you. I think publicly people look up to people like us, like people that they know are going through this. People definitely publicly look up to us, for sure. Your parents, our spiritual parents, okay, which some people, I don't know for everybody, I don't consider like my human parents my parents. I'm not talking about because I feel like it, because I want to say that. I just know that. It's an inner knowing. Your parents call you a goddess or god, whichever, male or female, but I think the world will call us an inspiration. I think that's the point, is to navigate these things, and hopefully some of us are able to put these things in words that we can explain to people how to get through these kinds of things. This system of stealing someone's life, that we use a broad term like gang stalking to describe, this system is so crazy that it does take what we are going through in order to help people moving forward. It does take the process of surviving it all the way through to the end. So no matter how you feel, no matter what you're going through, you literally have to, first of all, you have no choice, because where are you going to go? You can't leave countries, you can't like go live somewhere else. It'll just start back up somewhere else, fresh. I think moving somewhere else is even worse, because now you get a new batch of people. You cannot escape this. Like, you have to sit through it either way. But the longer you stay through it, I think you just know that you need to adapt to the things that are happening. And you get to a point where your adaptation is rapid and it gets faster and faster and faster and faster over time, where there were things that would take a lot of time for you to learn, and now you just get to the point where you just find a solution some way, somehow, and you don't bellyache about it. It doesn't take forever. What is eventually going to happen is that the people that are doing this to you are going to get tired, because it is impossible to beat down like this. It takes energy on both sides. I think when you're the one who's not reacting, it's like you're on energy saving mode, because it takes a lot, reactions take a lot of energy out of you. And not succeeding at something also drains a person's energy, because in the same way that we are constantly starting and stopping and we have to rework things, it's the same way that people that are persecuting us constantly have to rework persecution in different ways as well. So when it comes to the point where every single situation that you go through, you end up just not reacting, not care, or not reacting in the same way that you used to, you just get to a point where it's like, it does get tiring. I know it's tiring constantly living on this treadmill. I think on both sides, where people have to constantly try to look for new ideas and be extremely innovative and try to figure out how to do this thing, and they're frustrated as well. They have to have patience as well with the situation. It does look grim, sorry. Same thing for us. We have to rework, we have to be innovative. It's like, it's a battle. And I remember there was one video that I described it as the Hunger Games, and our ancestors are watching. They're watching as we go through this situation. Whether or not we are destined to win or destined to lose does not make it any easier to go through this. So, taking it easy on yourself is essential. God does not speak to you in the voice that maybe in the last little while you've adapted to hearing God's voice. Like ever since you started hearing voices, if you will, that is not how God speaks. That's not God's aura. That is, God's not abusive. That relationship, had it continued, would have continued to get more and more abusive in nature. And that is not how God is. God thinks you're doing an amazing job because you are. You're doing amazingly, considering everything that is going on, considering the burden that is being carried in this situation, considering the fact that you haven't fallen into your lowest nature. You are doing an amazing job. I know that God is proud of us. I know that even myself, there are times where I'm not happy with things I said, things I did. I also know I'm not perfect, and I also know that I forgive myself. You know, it is what it is. It could have been a million times worse. I know that much. That was my restrained response. And I think all of us have those situations where we have frustration and frustrating responses, for sure. I know there's some of us that have gone through a lot of abuse in relationships we thought were relationships with spirit, and it wasn't a relationship with spirit. It was a relationship with an abuser masquerading as spirit. And because that relationship became abusive, it would be easier. And then when you add the handlers and having the friends and the this and the that and the spell work and the puppeteering and all this kind of other stuff, then it does come to a point where you feel, a person would feel like they give up. because they feel like they're trying their best, and this voice is always making them feel bad, like they're the bad guy, they didn't do something right, or this and that. That's not God's voice. That's not God. God's voice is saying, you're doing an amazing job. You're going to get through this. It's a little while longer. You're going to be fine. Nobody comes here to suffer forever. I know that God definitely encourages some of these situations, like puts us in these situations for our personal growth. It's not sometimes, it's all the time. God puts us in these situations because God can stop anything. I'm telling you, like, it's nothing for God to stop these situations. God can literally put an end to all of these situations immediately, but we're going through these situations because we gotta learn. We're going through these situations because we gotta develop, we gotta work the muscle. We are going to fall back into things a lot of times before we completely like perfect it. So that is the message for tonight. You're doing an amazing job, and God absolutely loves you, and God is very gentle with all of us. God is very loving with all of us. You only know what a real mother is when God gets on the scene. When mother gets on the scene, that's when you know what a real mother is. You've never had a mother like that before. Even those of us who've had good mothers, you've just never felt this before. That is God's energy. It's just an energy of love. There is no such, God knows mistakes are on the menu. God anticipates it, and God says, it's fine. That's how it goes. If God is understanding of evil, then God is definitely understanding of you who's doing your best, who's holding on. And you know, the other thing I want to say is never give up on God no matter what happens. Keep going. Never, ever, 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 ever turn your back on God. Ever. Never turn your back on God no matter what happens here. No matter what you see, just know that God is with you. And just think of people who, like I said, like Cassie had to do 10 years in these situations. You think your situation is bad. You're not in Palestine. I use that as an example all the time because it breaks my heart. You're not in Palestine. You're not in a lot of situations of human persecution that you could be in. It's not fun. It's frustrating. But this situation is paradise compared to what other situations can be. So I want to give a tip of the day. These tips are a sacrifice, I tell you, because these tips are basically where people rework nonsense against me, but I also know that the more people rework things against me is the more advanced I get in my skills. So it is what it is. So the tip of the day is listen to the sounds around you. And this tip is about how to deal with what you guys call V2K, but what I call psychic attacks. The abusive voices, the voices that have Tourette's, the voices that try to entice you to trust them at 101, and then at 103, they're hurling very low vibing insults at you. It's how to deal with these voices. So, listen to the sounds around you. Focus on even very low sounds. So focus on a fan, the sound of the wind, even your own breathing. Focus on it. The beautiful part about this is it doesn't take long for the noise to completely drown out and for it to be blocked off from you completely. It makes the voices go completely mute. It's not that they're not talking, it's that you're consciously not hearing it anymore. You just have to drown out those voices. And it's magical. It's like magic. Once you stop focusing on it, you focus on something else, it drowns it out completely. And then they'll notice that you're not listening, and then they tap in and they notice that they can't hear their voice in your head. And, they asked me, they're like, how are you doing it? that behavior extends to everything in this experience. One of the ways that I rose above gang stalking, well, the way I rose above being gang stalked, or gang stalking having the same effect on me, was I just stopped paying attention to it. It wasn't that it wasn't happening, it was just that I kind of didn't care anymore. Because to me, I had already rationalized that nobody was going to physically hurt me. Once I rationalize that no one's going to actually, like, they can't. I'm in public, I'm walking on the street, and because of the fact that they are chained to pretending it's not happening, they want to do it, but they don't want anyone to know that they're doing it, so you look crazy. That's the point. And once I realized their parameters, I was just like, oh, well, good, they're trapped by that. So then it got to the point where people were on the street, and it wasn't just that they could look at me with a scowl because I wouldn't look at them. Then they'd have to go out of their way and be like this. Like, they'd have to get my attention, which made it obvious. And then people would be like looking around, other people would look at them, it'd be obvious. And there were so many times I'd look at strangers and be like, did you see that? And just kind of like, and they'd be like, what's wrong with this person? Because they have to go that far when you're not paying attention. Part of why my situation has intensified so much is because of me not paying attention, is because of me not reacting. And gang stalking is not supposed to be something that you're supposed to ignore. So as I ignore it, people have to go to greater and greater lengths to get my attention. So it's your attention that people want in this situation. They need your attention for anything to start working. So when you take away your attention from the voice is drowned. That's the trick. That's it. It's like, of all of them, this was the easiest one. Like, I thought for V2K, like, I was just like, nobody better ever do that to me. I swear to God. Like, I was just literally like, I don't want to deal with it. And then when it finally happened to me, and it's been going on for quite some time, but when it got like overt and abusive, because that's how they work. They do a little bit and then they start doing a lot. When it started getting overt and crazy, it was like, you just have to drown it out. That's it. Just don't pay attention to it. Luckily for me, I'm very used to drowning people out. I don't know, I think it's a verbal thing. Like, I can ignore people so well. People think they don't exist. Like, it's a practiced behavior from day one. When I don't like someone, I can't look them in the eye anymore. I don't care. I just will pretend you don't exist. It doesn't matter what is happening. So that is a behavior. If you're not like that, you have to practice. I think different things are harder for different people. Some people, the V2K thing is going to be very difficult to have that sort of like focus, that mental focus. And for other people, it's like maybe things that I struggled with or struggle with, it's not going to be difficult for them. So it just depends on your personality and, you know, that sort of thing. But for the V2K, I want to tell you, honestly, it's one of the easiest things ever. Stop listening. Like, literally drown it out. Listen to something else. Another thing that helps with that is learning to meditate, because part of learning to meditate is listening to the sounds around you. It's just listening to the sound in the room. No matter how quiet it is, there is a noise. And even when there's no noise, you go mindless. I don't know if it's kind of like, this happens to me often. Like, sometimes you might just be driving or doing something and you're just on autopilot. Like, your brain's not thinking anything. You go blank. It's kind of like that. So that's all you got to do to let the noise go, to let you know yourself just not think about anything. This practice will be needed for other more focused forms of magic. Your mind needs to be strong. You need to sharpen your mind in this thing that we're going through here, because magic takes a lot of focus. It takes prolonged periods of focus. So training your mind is something that, like, literally, it's like, I want to say it's the bulk of it. It's easy to do things like when you do symbolic things, like you put something on the altar, you light a candle, you do this, you do that, whatever. I think things like that are easier than being strong mentally. That takes a lot. Before I go, I just want to say Santa Muerte is king. And, for me, that is still my mother. And they still insist on using voices when it comes to doing that. It's like not accepting that the hoax is up. And they're gonna continue doing that after you recognize that this voice is not the voice of God, and that God does not speak to you in voices and stuff like that. Even after it comes down to that, they're gonna continue doing it. It's gonna be very, very, very aggravating. It has been aggravating for a while, to be honest with you. Um, but it is what it is. Even that aggravation, you gotta start healing it and just getting over it and just letting it be what it is. Anything that aggravates you, anything that gets under your skin is something that people are gonna use. So it's better to just stop focusing on it, drown it out, walk away from it, not respond to it until it just becomes a natural part of the background noise in your head. Like, I feel like you don't need to be consciously aware of these voices. It's kind of like how it's like hearing a generator run. Maybe in the beginning, you know what it's actually like? It's V2K is like how black people never put batteries in the fire alarm. In the beginning, that fire alarm is irritating. Every however long the thing beeps, and then it gets more and more frequent how much it beeps. And then one day you don't hear it. You don't hear the fire alarm. You don't hear the alarm anymore. I once left all the fire alarms in my house without batteries for like a year. It was so bad. People used to ask me, they're like, "So are you gonna change the batteries?" I'm like, "Yeah, I will," and I just never did. And I would only notice it. I wouldn't even notice it in videos. I used to make content, and there used to be the battery going. V2K is like that. The voices are like that. In the beginning, it's irritating because it's like, damn it, I gotta do something about that. And then it gets to the point where it's just the background noise of your mind, and it's almost like you don't hear it. Even when you hear it, it's like you don't hear it. It gets fainter and fainter and fainter over time. So whatever you don't pay attention to just kind of fades away. And another thing I want to say is please start manifesting and not aligning with this energy anymore. I used to be nervous to manifest because I'm like, people are going to pray down against it and whatever, but it's like, look, they're going to do that anyway because that's how they are. There's this quote that this lady, it's not a quote, it's like a video that was on the internet, and they were telling her to do something, and she's like, oh, I was going to do that anyway because that's how I am. It's like they're going to do that anyway because that's how they are. They're going to try to guess what your manifestations are, or what's coming in for you based on tarot, based on readings, based on whatever, and they're going to pray against it anyway. So you got to be bold enough to manifest knowing that people are going to freak out, try to bind you, try to steal it, try to do this, try to do that, and just trust God anyway. And start thinking about the things that you want, and start praying, and start believing and hoping, and navigating yourself out of this, and just kind of like walking away from this energetically. Maybe not physically. Physically, it's still going to happen. Listen, people are still in my house all the time. It just is going to be what it's going to be. That's how it has to come to. It's so irritating in the beginning, and then it's just like, well, it is what it is. What are you going to do? Because the reality is, like, we could go into their house too. Like, it's not like these are closed doors. If we start going over there, they're going to be in our position. They're going to have to go look for spiritual remedies. They're going to have to look for ointments and cleanses, and they're going to try to, gateway the entrances and all of this. They're going to be doing the same thing. But you got more important things to do than to be traveling in and out of someone's house. Like, you actually have things to accomplish, right? Like, you have the freedom to live your life. You're not chained to doing something like that. So You just gotta get to the point where you're just like, look, this is my life. Like I cannot believe it that I have to talk online and then people astral project to me in the bathroom while I'm like on the toilet. I just think that's a level of imprisonment to, have to work on someone while they're in the toilet. You know, it's bad. It's gotten to a desperate state when you gotta do it while someone's on the toilet. I don't know if they can sense what's going on in there, but it's like, damn. So it's just like, you just have to take it how it is. You can consciously know it and then consciously just tune it out and not care. And it just is what it is at that point. Whatever they're going to do, they're going to do either way, whether you freak out or not. Whatever they're trying to accomplish, they're going to do it either way. So it's like, you might as well just let people try to figure out what it is that they're going to figure out for the day. Let them get it off their chest and just kind of like move forward with the things you have to do. And as passive as that sounds, it is, and I'm on energy savings mode for sure. I'm not talking about like physical energy of being tired. I'm on energy savings mode because I really need my energy for my future because I have one. So you gotta think of it that way. Like, you need your energy for your future. Like, I'll give you an example. I logged into my bank account today and the information on there was changed. And I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me right now? Like, that's insane. And I'm just thinking to myself, back in the day, that would freak me out. Like, I would go change the card, change the password, change the this, change the that, and it would cause like a whole big distraction. It would have costed me waiting in the line at the bank and going through the frustration, being mad and this and that. And now I'm just like, look, whatever. It is what it is. There's no time for that because the energy needs to be put into the places that the energy needs to be put in. So consider all of these things. Sometimes I feel like I say this and I feel like it wouldn't have an impact, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it might sound like passive to someone, but I know that to people who are struggling, putting effort into pushing back against silly things, because these are silly things. Somebody is changing your information at the bank is a very silly thing. It's a silly thing. So finding yourself in some of these situations, it's like you're gonna have to walk back and like redo or undo some of the things you did when you were listening to the voices in your head. You're gonna have to walk back and cure some of those things. So consider that. It's been happening a lot longer than, like, for me, I'm like thinking back like, yeah, this has been longer than the 2 weeks, etc. You're gonna have to walk back and fix things. You're gonna have to readjust to the way like you have been doing things. And you just have to like focus. You have to focus on the things that are important and like let other things go and break out of some of these cycles that we've been stuck in. There is no point in having the pity party for yourself and thinking, like you feel sorry for yourself, that you're going through it and whatnot. I just come to a point where it's like I feel neutral about it. It's neither good nor bad necessarily. It's like not just, it's not it's not necessarily, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I see the benefit in it logically, but in the feeling of it, it's not like you necessarily feel like this is such a great thing, because this is not such a great thing. Like, this is a tough thing to do, but I also don't feel like down on myself about it either. Like, oh my god, like, how could this happen and all this kind of stuff. Like, because you just kind of get used to it. It's like it's just your life. This is how your life is. And I can still see it on a lot of people's faces when I saw it from a long time ago. When I tell them what I'm going through, they look so terrified. And now I'm just like, oh my god, who cares? For me, it's just like, it is what it is, hopefully sooner rather than later, like, we get to that point. God's gonna help you through these challenges where you get blocked in certain cycles, where things continue to work long past the point that they have to work or they should work. God helps you through that, and you just kind of like navigate it, and you come to the point where, like, you just know there's going to be a new thing. Once the old thing doesn't work, they'll keep reworking the old thing over and over. It is the nature of witches to rework things. If I send you a cold and it doesn't work, it means I didn't do something right. Let me do it again. So they're going to keep reworking things that don't work over and over and over. It's going to happen. And then when they finally come to the conclusion that it doesn't work, they're going to leave it alone. They're going to strategize something else. And when they strategize something else, it's just another opportunity for you to navigate over that. Because as long as it works, they'll keep doing it. And then you get over that, and there'll be another one, and another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And then that becomes the way that you become accustomed to living, is that there is always something. So you release it a lot quicker. You release that attitude of, well, this is going to happen, and that's frustrating me, and that, like, you just know this is another lesson. As a matter of fact, it's interesting for me. I always wait to see, like, what the new thing is that's going to happen. So that's it. We're growing through trials. It just is going to get to the point where it's almost like you release yourself by no longer perceiving this as a trial. Not that you're even perceiving it as growth. It's just that it's almost like the problem will just disappear. Whether or not people get arrested, whether or not people do this or do that, there are only so many ways a person can frustrate you. There are only so many ways that you can continue going through persecution if it doesn't work. If you already know how to cleanse yourself, and you already know how to, like, you're not going to pass away from it, then everything else is pretty much just, like, there's only so much, there's only so many times. And then whether or not it's happening, you're not perceiving it as an attack anymore. It takes time to get there. It's not going to be foolproof. It's not going to be like magic just because you say it. You're going to say it, and then you're going to stumble, and you're going to try again, you're going to stumble, and it's going to be wobbly. But when you get it, you get it. When you get there, you get there. And you just find yourself in a place of peace where there is an incredible amount of chaos that exists around you. It's literally like being a parent to chaotic kids. Like, you ever see people who have bad kids? They're not flustered. Some of them. But a lot of them just let those kids run wild. They just accept it. Their kid is having a meltdown in the store, and they're having a casual conversation, and they look over at the kid on the floor, and then they get back to their conversation. Like, they don't let that stop them. They're not in a rush, they're not in a panic, and they're not embarrassed. They could care less. So it's like, it's kind of like that. You just get to the point where it's almost like you're dealing with a kid that's having a tantrum, and every once in a while you might look over there because somebody pointed it out. You're so used to it. Somebody points it out, like, wait a minute, like, isn't your kid lashing out? And you're just like, yeah, but, and you get back to what you're doing, because it's like this becomes a part of your day. This is just a part of your day. So anyway, that's it for tonight. Thank you. Have a good night, and God bless.